Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1953 to working-class parents and grew up in a modest household. By his late teens, he showed strong mathematical ability and briefly attended Cooper Union and later New York University, though there is no evidence he completed a degree. In the early 1970s, he took a job teaching mathematics and physics at the elite Dalton School in Manhattan, a private institution attended by children from wealthy and influential families. Former colleagues later said he was charismatic and unusually confident for someone so young. During this period, he began forming relationships with parents connected to finance and business, including Alan Ace Greenberg of Bear Stearns, who would soon play a pivotal role in Epstein's career shift from teaching to Wall Street. In 1976, Epstein left Dalton and joined Bear Stearns, one of the most powerful investment banks in the United States at the time. Official records about his exact responsibilities remain thin, but he was described as working in derivatives and options trading, a sophisticated area that suited his mathematical skill. Within a few years, he had become wealthy, though the precise source of his fortune would become one of the enduring mysteries surrounding him. He left Bear Stearns in the early 1980s and soon afterwards set himself up as a financial consultant serving an extremely small circle of ultra-rich clients. Unlike traditional hedge funds or asset managers, Epstein claimed to work for only one billionaire at a time, collecting fees for managing money, advising on tax strategy, and arranging complex financial structures. Public filings suggest his most important client for many years was retail magnate Leslie Wexner, founder of Limited Brands, who granted Epstein sweeping control over personal finances, property purchases, and legal affairs. By the late 1980s and 1990s, Epstein had transformed himself into a fixture of high society. He acquired a sprawling mansion on Manhattan's Upper East Side, one of the largest private residences in the city, along with luxury homes in Palm Beach, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, and a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands known as Little St. James. He traveled constantly aboard private jets and cultivated relationships with politicians, academics, royalty, scientists, and celebrities. He donated to universities and research programs, attended glittering galas, and presented himself as a patron of science fascinated by genetics, artificial intelligence, and longevity. Photographs from the period show him mingling easily with powerful figures, often at exclusive gatherings far removed from public scrutiny. Behind this cultivated image, however, accusations of sexual exploitation began to surface. According to later court filings and police reports, by the mid-1990s, Epstein was recruiting teenage girls, often from economically vulnerable backgrounds, to come to his Palm Beach mansion under the pretense of giving massages, only for sexual acts to follow. Some of the young women later said they were paid cash afterward and encouraged to bring friends, creating what investigators described as a recruitment pipeline. For years, these allegations did not lead to public charges, and Epstein continued to operate largely unnoticed outside local law enforcement circles. In 2005, a Palm Beach woman reported to police that her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been molested by Epstein at his home. The complaint triggered an investigation by local authorities that uncovered dozens of similar allegations. Palm Beach police built a case recommending multiple felony charges and turned their findings over to state prosecutors, who in turn referred the matter to federal authorities. The case drew in the U.S. Attorney's Office in South Florida, then led by Alexander Acosta, and soon became a high-stakes negotiation between Epstein's powerful legal team and federal prosecutors. What followed would become one of the most controversial plea deals in modern American criminal justice history. In 2008, Epstein agreed to plead guilty in Florida state court to 2 prostitution-related offenses, one involving a minor. In exchange, federal prosecutors dropped the possibility of more serious charges and granted immunity to potential co-conspirators. Epstein served 13 months in county jail, but under a controversial work-release arrangement, he was allowed to leave 6 days a week for up to 12 hours a day to go to his office. After his release, he was required to register as a sex offender, yet he soon resumed traveling internationally and socializing with elites. Years later, internal Justice Department reviews would criticize the handling of the case, and victims said they had not been properly informed of the agreement, fueling accusations that Epstein had received extraordinary leniency because of his wealth and connections. Journalists and civil rights attorneys continued to pursue the story. Investigative reporting by outlets such as the Miami Herald in 2018 revived public outrage, detailing how the original investigation had identified far more alleged victims than the charges reflected, and highlighting the secrecy surrounding the federal deal. This renewed scrutiny coincided with civil lawsuits filed by accusers, including Virginia Giuffre, who alleged she had been trafficked by Epstein to powerful men while she was a minor, claims that Epstein denied before his death, and that some of the individuals named also denied. Court battles led to the release of deposition transcripts, flight records, address books, and emails that showed the breadth of Epstein's social network, though those documents did not by themselves prove criminal wrongdoing by everyone mentioned within them. In July 2019, federal prosecutors in New York arrested Epstein on new charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy to traffic minors, based on allegations spanning from 2002 to 2005, involving girls in both New York and Florida. This time, the potential penalties were far more severe, carrying decades in prison. Epstein was denied bail after a judge concluded he posed a flight risk, citing his immense wealth, private aircraft, foreign residences, and history of avoiding serious punishment. He was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a federal jail that soon came under intense scrutiny for its conditions and staffing. Less than a month later, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell and was later pronounced dead at a hospital. The New York City medical examiner ruled his death a suicide by hanging, but the circumstances immediately sparked widespread suspicion and controversy. Reports emerged that he had been taken off suicide watch, that guards had failed to check on him as frequently as required, and that malfunctioning cameras had limited visual records of the area near his cell. The Justice Department launched investigations into the facility. 2 guards were later charged with falsifying records, and the failures of the jail became the subject of congressional hearings and Inspector General reports. Epstein's death meant that criminal proceedings against him ended, leaving many victims without the chance to see him convicted in court. After his death, attention shifted to his estate, his associates, and the system that had allowed him to operate for so long. Civil suits continued against people alleged to have facilitated or ignored his activities, including employees who managed his properties or scheduled appointments, though outcomes varied and many defendants denied wrongdoing. In 2021, Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime associate and former girlfriend of Epstein, was convicted in federal court on charges related to recruiting and grooming minors for Epstein's abuse in the 1990s, and was later sentenced to 20 years in prison, marking one of the most significant legal consequences to emerge from the network surrounding him. The phrase Epstein Files became shorthand for the troves of documents released through litigation and investigative reporting. Flight logs from his private jets showing frequent travel among politicians, business leaders, and celebrities, contact lists with hundreds of names, settlement agreements, sealed depositions later unredacted by court order, and internal memos from law enforcement agencies. These materials fueled intense public debate and, in some corners of the internet, elaborate conspiracy theories. Journalists and legal analysts repeatedly cautioned that appearing in records such as flight manifests or address books did not automatically imply participation in crimes, stressing the difference between association and proven misconduct. Still, the documents illustrated how Epstein had embedded himself within global power networks, using philanthropy, access, and luxury as social currency. Financially, Epstein's wealth remained another unresolved puzzle. Despite court scrutiny, no clear public accounting ever fully explained how he accumulated and maintained hundreds of millions of dollars. His tax strategies, trust structures, and offshore entities were complex, and while ties to Wexner and other wealthy clients were documented, many observers remained skeptical that advisory fees alone accounted for his fortune. This opacity contributed to his mystique and to suspicions that he possessed leverage over influential figures, though definitive proof of systematic blackmail or intelligence agency involvement has never been produced in court. In the years following his death, the Epstein case became emblematic of broader concerns about inequality before the law, the treatment of sexual abuse victims, and the capacity of wealth and status to shield individuals from accountability. Government reports acknowledged failures by prosecutors and prison officials, while advocacy groups pushed for reforms in how non-prosecution agreements are handled and how victims are notified in federal cases. Universities and charities that had accepted Epstein's donations faced criticism, and in some cases, returned or redirected the money after learning more about his criminal history. The story that emerged from the accumulated records was not just about one man, but about a system that intersected finance, politics, celebrity culture, and law enforcement, creating spaces where exploitation could occur in private while public images remained polished. Epstein's life traced a path from a middle-class upbringing to the highest tiers of wealth and influence, powered by financial acumen, strategic relationships, and a carefully maintained aura of exclusivity. His downfall, decades later, exposed not only his own alleged crimes, but also the institutional blind spots and human failures that allowed those allegations to persist for so long without decisive intervention. Even now, years after his death, new documents periodically surface through court proceedings and investigative work, reigniting public fascination and anger. For survivors, the releases are reminders of what they endured and of the justice they feel was delayed or denied. For the broader public, the Epstein saga remains a cautionary tale about secrecy, power, and the vulnerabilities that arise when accountability mechanisms fail. It is a narrative still being assembled from thousands of pages of testimony, legal filings, and journalistic investigations, each adding detail to a portrait of a man who built an empire of access while, according to courts and accusers, committing acts that ultimately destroyed lives and shook confidence in some of society's most trusted institutions.